Hello everyone, it's Ben here from Spirit of Independence, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by a selection of our short film filmmakers. And this time it's not going to be me talking. I'm going to hand over to a colleague and long-standing friend of mine, Rob Seperanza. Rob runs the South Yorkshire Filmmakers Network here in Sheffield, but he's also a producer of several feature films as well. And I'm always delighted to have Rob's help. So to lead this panel, Rob is going to be handling the questions. So thank you very much, Rob, and let's hand over to you.
Oh, thanks, Ben. Thank you very much. And I'll just say before we say anything at all, well done getting the old Spirit of Independence Film Festival, off the ground. It's got a couple, how many years are we in now? We three?
No, just two. Just
it
two.
Feels like longer already.
It feels longer to me as well.
The wrong reasons. But no, for a better track record already. And it feels like, this is a great thing. I really hope that it continues to thrive and swell in Sheffield. And I love that you're doing this in spite of, ridiculousness all across the globe, shutting everything down and not actually being able to get together in a cinema. So nice one, Ben. Thanks.
Thank you.
For the opportunity. All right, guys. So welcome everybody. So yes, as you said, I'm Rob Seperanza, line producer, lots of short films and features under my belt. Happy to see you guys here today. Let's do a little intro so you can talk about who you are, what film you made, so people have seen the films already and can know who to connect with. Can I start with you, Leo, right over here on my left anyway?
Yes, hi. So I'm Eleonora, I'm not Michele. We had a little bit of a technical problem there. And I'm the writer-director of The Bargain. And yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. Hello there, Leo. And Alexandra. Hello, Alex.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Guillossou, and I am the director-producer of After the Flood.
After the Flood. Cool. Thank you, Alex. And Ben Reynolds, here we are.
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm the co-writer and producer of Archer.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Ben. Right, and we've got George right after.
Hello.
You.
I also co-wrote and I directed Archer.
Right, and we also have Chris, who needs to unmute himself. Wow, that was fast. Hi, Chris.
I'm a dab hand at this. Hello, I'm Chris Boyd. I'm the filmmaker behind the short documentary called Perfectionery. Very glad to be here. Hello, everybody.
Hello, guys. All right, thanks everybody for your intro. So let's start. I mean, there's a big focus at this film festival at Spirit of Independence that kind of talks about there being a need to show films that have lower budgets. We don't let those bigger budget ones in. We want the homegrown stuff. We want the sort of more, you're passionate about your idea. It doesn't matter if you have money or not kind of projects. Am I right on saying something similar to that, Mr. Wilkinson? Yeah. So let's talk about that first, since there is a focus on money in this industry, and a lot of people sometimes wait a long time before they get their films made, because they want to try to raise more money for them, and sometimes they just say, well, screw it, I just want to forge ahead. Let me throw that question out to you guys in the first place, just about money. Why was it not a big deciding factor maybe in making your film, or if it was, you've got your film into this lovely little festival anyway. What does that mean to you? And maybe also, would the film have been any different if you had money or not? I like to just talk about that kind of stuff, the idea of budget and how much it impacts, your filmmaking and the sort of films that you make. In any case, I would love, actually, if you don't mind, Mr. Boyd, Chris, I'd like to start with you on this one, if you don't mind, because I just wanted to know if you maybe got paid in bread.
Yes, actually, yeah, they did. My film's about this kind of eccentric family that runs a bakery in Sheffield, and I mean, a lot of stale loaves, I have to say. I'm not casting any aspersions on the people who run it, but got some good cast-offs and some donuts and that sort of thing. But the budget thing's interesting to pick up on. It wouldn't have made any difference to me, if this film was basically me going down with my iPhone and shooting the whole thing on my iPhone and then editing it together on a rusty old Mac, which, shut down every time I tried to do something on Final Cut Pro. So, I think it cost me about £500 to make the film, and I spent a long time grading it. And, I think the most amount of money I spent was like a mobile phone gimbal, so I could do some really pretentious, like steady cam Kubrick shots. You know,
shot. I know the shot, the one you approaching the bakery from the front.
Exactly. Yeah. But no, it would have made no difference to me, and that was the kind of impetus for making this film. I'd heard, I'd been into the establishment many times. I'd heard, spoken to the proprietors. They'd told me all about their story and the son, who was like this kind of superhuman figure to me. Really, he's like a superhero. He lives for bread, for making bread, and that's his kind of calling in life.
That's Phil we're talking about. Is that Phil?
That's Phil, yeah, Big Phil.
Character. Let's talk more about the kind of subject matter of the film in a bit. I want to know. I had a feeling you would say something like that the money wouldn't have mattered to you. I'm interested in kind of like, why you shot the film also in black and white. I want to talk about that. What the difference was, and was that something you did live or?
That was because it was easier for me to make it look good in black and white, because I had no experience of like grading. This is my, obviously, like everybody here, grown up watching films and being inspired by films, and I've worked a bit in the film industry for most of my working life, and this was a kind of, for want of a better word, a chance for me to kind of go out and make my own film. And I think that's partly why I made it as a doc as well, because I could just go off and shoot it on my own, and I didn't need to rely on anybody else. And it's I'm glad how it turned out, but it's a purely kind of my own, at that point, lack of talent or ability at being a grader, that I thought I could make this look half decent as a black and white film.
Well, I think it does look great. I mean, really it does. Right. I had a feeling you were going to say something like that about budget, but I just thought, let me throw that out there. Let's talk more about it in terms of content in a bit. I'd like to throw the same question out to everybody else, though. Did money make a difference or not when it came to making your film? Arguably, Leo, you had the film that had the most characters, the most sort of locations, let's say, kind of thing like that.
Yeah.
In the bargain. Money, factor or not?
Well, I actually designed it to be low budget, because it's like, yes, there is few locations, but literally it's two, and there is like no moving parts, no things that change too much. The props are kind of like easy to do. So, I often, when I write, I often starts with a location, because I know that in that way you keep the cost contained. And even we've had like quite a few extras. Actually, the main actors are 3, and it was like not a period piece. It was kind of like they could have their own. So when I wrote it knowing that I wanted to keep it very, very contained in terms of budget, because I wanted to be able to, do something very small. And then we were, of course, lucky with the special effects that, were friends doing that.
That was the big thing I wanted to ask you about in terms of that. Like, you did have, what did I write here? I wrote something specific about that. Yeah, I understand this was done very little budget, but what about the effects? How did you achieve that? That was a favor then.
Yes, but at the same time, again, I designed it in a way that I knew which kind of effects were very important that I could make, because I had, I could do a little bit. So the one thing that I would need to explain this story, I knew I could do by myself if I needed to. Okay. And then I was lucky enough that I reached out to a person that did it as a favor. But again, that was kind of in the design of making the movie, knowing that I could achieve what I wanted just by myself. And then of course it was 10 times better because a professional came in.
Very nice. So let me just throw this out there to everybody now. More comments about budget, more comments about whether money would have made a difference to you or not. Leo, I almost want to throw out there back to you again in a minute to say, like, well, if you did have some cash, all of a sudden somebody threw 10 grand in your lap to say, yeah, make the bargain for that bargain. How would that have affected you? But let's throw that question out there to everybody. Money a factor or not? Alex, Ben, George.
No, not at all. I prefer working with zero because I only have zero. And the effort to try to find money just kills the whole project. Plus, I work a lot with a cinematographer who has been mentoring me in a lot of different ways in how to film. And his belief is always that you can do it a lot cheaper than what everybody tells you to. I just came from a festival for another one of my films, and everyone in the meeting kept talking about how you couldn't make a film for less than $50,000. And I sat there and I went, well, I just made this one, which wasn't this film, it's another one I did. I just made this.
A feature, sorry, a short or a feature?
Another short. It was another short, but nothing. And I don't know. There's a person that actor that I did that film with. It's about the art of available resources, and the whole idea of that is that you can create anything you want based on what you have. That there's no reason you have to raise money or have to get things to be able to make the product. So that's sort of the way I work. It's worked so far.
Well, it certainly. I mean, less than 50,000, you can't make a film. That was a general consensus amongst a lot of people in the same room. That doesn't make much sense.
It was.
I think
that seems bonkers to me. That seems crazy. The thought of
good word.
That sort of thinking about money is mental. I would say the same sentiments that you've said, Alexandra. I think that for us, when George and I made Archer, the whole point of it was we were writing it to be made equally. But that's not to say that if we weren't given the money to do something else with it, we couldn't improve upon the idea or change it slightly, perhaps. But the film would have been different. I think that's perhaps the biggest thing that money can do. It might mean that you have some more freedom in your particular choices or whatever it is that you're deciding to do, but the film will end up quite different to what it would have been if you were making it on a shoestring or on some sort of micro budget.
Well, in terms of Archer,
no budget's nice.
Sorry, George.
Yeah.
Sorry. The stress and the impact of imagination that you have with no budget, I feel is really important into making something that you actually like. Even though a budget would have allowed us to have lighting, which is great, it gave us imagination to use as much natural light as possible to make pretty shots with tree light and nice light, like real light. And I feel like imagination for short films is key to making them appealing.
Totally. I mean, necessity is the mother of invention. I think that comes into effect here whenever we're talking about films that are made on very little budget and have limitations that are built in. I'd like to talk about the aspect of different locations and where you guys all are at. We actually don't know that right now. We're sitting here on a Zoom call. We don't know where you're all from and where you are. Ben, me, Leo, we're all sitting here in Sheffield, in the UK. Chris, you too, correct? Yes? You in Sheffield?
That's right.
George, Ben, Alex, where are you guys?
I'm in Stamford in Lincolnshire in the UK.
I'm in Nottingham in the Midlands of the UK.
I've just made a TV show in your city 2 weeks ago.
Oh, amazing.
George. And how about you, Alex?
I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, in the United States.
Now that I'll just use that as a springboard to talk about this with locations, because obviously your film and After the Flood, was super reliant on your location. There's two massive things that happen. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about messages and location. Okay, messages and location amongst us all night now. Alexander, I'm kind of curious about your film After the Flood in terms of why you thought it was a good idea to make a film about this. It's interesting. You've got a juxtaposition, a dichotomy, whatever you want to call it, between the St. Louis Blues Championship rally, right? It was what was the rally again?
It was their first time national champions.
Yeah, big deal.
Hockey.
And you merged that with you merged that with the flood, right? So
Right.
Tell us about why you decided to kind of merge these two things together and what messages you think that sends to your audience.
It was honestly a crazy coincidence. The true story is the film was meant to be an environmental piece that was about river cleanup.
Ah.
And at the time when I started filming, the river was flooding. And so I obviously couldn't do river cleanup. I had to wait for the river to go down. And so I was just filming at that point the flood, because it was, I think, the second or third highest that we've had. And so then after I filmed that, my husband told me that, well, nobody's going to watch this because you need context. And I went, and he said, well, the Blues just won. Everybody knows the Blues. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. So we went down, and I didn't know what I was wanting to do. I was just like, okay, I'll just film and see what happens. And as I was filming, I was starting to discover the parallels between, you know, thousands of people and what thousands of people do to a space, just like thousands of gallons of water. And then, you know, I went back the next day to see the cleanup of the city, and then that versus the cleanup of rivers. So it was just sort of a weird serendipitous sort of thing that happened. It wasn't planned at all. And so then the downside of that is that I couldn't go back. Now that I had an idea based upon these two chunks of footage, and I had something to make a parallel with them, you know, the river had gone down. So it's not like I could go back and say, oh, I really needed to get this now. It just...
One-shot deal.
And the same thing, I can't ask thousands of people to run back downtown and get drunk and have a parade. And yeah. So it ended up then at that point, you know, I just had to take what I had and then just add the little bit with my daughter to try to round out the piece.
Okay, that was your daughter. She's the thread that runs through.
She is, yeah.
Got it. So I want to add another element to this question also as I open it up to other people. I want you to also think about what you wanted your audience to feel afterwards, you know, so what your kind of main point is in terms of messages. And by the way, Alex, I'm really sorry about this, but I do feel your pain in that I am also a long-suffering, you know, only one championship in my lifetime, you know, 1995 it was for us. Before that, it was 1940, and nothing since, my darling. So, yeah. All right, let's open it up, that question, right? Leo, guys, all you know, talk about messages. What do you want people to feel after watching your film? The bargain's a good one to throw into this, you know? Tell us.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, it's kind of like it's the point where you snap. Like everybody has a snapping point. And in the case of the movie, well, without revealing too much, but it comes to a great cost. But it's, you know, I think everybody finds themselves in a situation where they can do the right thing or not, and what is it that pushes them to do the right thing? You know, where do you snap? But the other things that, you know, there are situations in which people find themselves. So the wheel keeps going. So I kind of want to feel people slightly, I hope that people feel a slightly sense of dread, and they can, you know, find themselves into the message of the movie, you know, and understand what the characters feel and, you know, the choices they make, because basically, you know, the film is all about choices and what do you do and how do you act. So that's my message, really, without spoiling too much.
Yeah, no, won't spoil it, just in case people haven't seen it yet. All right, boys, any boys below me here?
George, do you want to say something to Archer?
Oh, George, your sound is off.
You go, Ben, you go first and then I'll jump in.
Okay, well, yeah, no, just to say that I think, because we wrote this together, you know, we knew that we wanted to write a short film, and George sort of rang me. You know, we were friends and knew each other and had worked on a couple of things, though not sort of properly together. And George rang me with this idea, and I think I was in a queue in like Wilko or something. And we ended up just talking for ages and ages about this idea. And I was just stood in the queue or in like the middle of the aisle or something. And it sort of developed from there. But the way that we wrote it was that we wanted it to be intriguing, and we didn't want to answer all of the questions that we were posing. And the point of it was for the audience to sort of fill in the gaps themselves. It's only around 6 minutes long in the end, and you know, so we didn't want to we didn't want it to sort of be fully rounded in the normal sense. You know, we wanted there to be a sort of, you know, a way for the audience to dig into it, but not sort of give them everything on a plate, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Filling in the gaps, a little bit of ambiguity, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yep. George, are you gonna?
Yeah, like a lot was probably covered in that. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's about two kids living in the wild. So when you're a kid, when I was a kid, I always thought it'd be cool to live in a forest for a bit. And this is kind of just like brings that to real life in a way. But then you've got the threat levels of what could happen in medieval times. And yeah, it's just an exploration of imagination. Again, I'll come back to it. That's all it is. It's I want someone to watch it and be like, oh, that was quite cool because it was creative. It's a story that organically turns into a threat type of thing. Like the simplest narrative possible is what I wanted to aim for, but I wanted to do it in quite a heartwarming way. If that makes sense.
Gotcha. Chris, how about you on this subject?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really go into it with any kind of agenda, really. I just wanted to kind of create this sort of warm portrait of these people, this family unit. And I mean, I can imagine possibly working in that sort of confined space on a day-to-day basis with my nearest and dearest and end up killing them, you know. But that's what this family do. They're like, you're kind of in there. I mean, I went down a couple of nights in a row to film them, and it's like being trapped in a submarine or something. It's that tight, and I guess that sort of obviously informed how I shot it, because you know, we'd only got kind of these people had to work, and I had to work around that. But yeah, I felt like there's a kind of sense of community came out of it as well, and people really relying on the shop as a place to come in and chat and unload their burdens and their worries as well, and people really rely on it for that reason. So, you know, there's almost, I kind of wanted the end stuff at the end of the film where they're delivering the bread around Sheffield as a sort of kind of breath of fresh air. You know, you've been trapped down, they're not underground, but it might as well be underground, making this product all night, day in, day out, and then, you know, and then they're out delivering it to the community, and you know, people are thankful, and not just for the product, but for the kind of the interaction, really. So that's something that I've come back to in a later film as well, which is about a community, an isolated community in Lincolnshire. But yeah, especially at the moment as well, you know, given what's happened this year and how people have this sort of re-emergence of good old British values, and, you know, everybody singing the national anthem and standing out on the doorsteps clapping and all that, and I'm sort of fascinated by that, really, and what kind of drives that. So yeah, that's what I would hope people got from it, a kind of warm portrait of a community in action.
Thanks, Chris. I think that's exactly what I came out of it with. You know, I just wanted to go down there and support it. You know, so I'm going to get my bread from there next time. You know, that kind of, it's not meant to be a promotional film, but it's like, you know, I certainly felt, you know, I wanted to know more about this family. I mean, I want to ask a little bit more about that. Like, you know, how did the family feel about you focusing on them, you know, as much? A question like that I'd like to throw out there to most of you, but start with you, Chris. But let's build something else into it as well, actually. I want to find, I mean, you know, we've got, let's see, so yeah, two filmmakers here that have got Sheffield as location, right, kind of thing. You know, we've got a film in a bakery, we've got a film in the woods, we've got a film in a nondescript type warehouse sort of location, perhaps, Leo, and a film in all over St. Louis. You know, and so I'm wondering a little bit about this, how much location informs what you guys are doing, you know, when it comes to working on a film like the one that you've made. You know, is it always a deciding factor? Can you make the films, you know, anywhere I think we've got such different films sitting here right now. In this one view that I'm looking at, it's kind of hard to generalize and answer. All of you would have very different answers to that question, I think. So let's ask that. Yeah, how much does the location really kind of inform and affect the kinds of films that you make, particularly the one that's featured in this festival?
Yeah, just to start. Sorry, I'll start us off. But yes, it informed us a lot in terms of how we were going to make this film. I think, to be honest, when we were like location scouting, me and George, that was probably the thing that we spent some of the most time on in pre-production, right, was finding the right place. And that wasn't necessarily the place that looked the best or the place that, you know, might have been aesthetically what we were looking for, but it also had to be, you know, far away from a road, preferably not a public place where, you know, we were going to have dog walkers like interrupt us every 5 minutes or whatever it was. And so we drove around, and the two of us just wandered around a lot of woods together for a long time. We spent a good, I don't know, probably 7 days all in all. But, wow, you know, it was the place that we eventually ended up filming on was not like a thick sort of forest as we had imagined, and was sort of a little patch of woodland on some farmland. And but the beauty of it was that it was far enough away from a road that you wouldn't be able to hear it, yeah, and that it was private land, so that there was no chance of anyone sort of interrupting us filming. Yeah. The farmer did know we were there. That was, I should say, we weren't breaking into or trespassing. We had his permission, so that was always good to have your location releases and stuff. I've done the same, Ben. I've made a couple of films in the woods and had to look for that right bit of woodland with my director. Matter of fact, one of the films was called Into the Woods, and so we had to make sure that the woods was a character all on its own as well. Alexandra, of course, your film really focuses and needs to have its location for it to have been called what it is, to have done what it does.
Right, and that even had limitations because at the point that I filmed the flooding, it was the highest. So we were actually limited on where we could go. There were a lot of areas that were just blocked off. Mm-hmm. They were only given access to people that live there, which was probably, really probably better footage. But at the same time, you want to be really conscientious of the fact that these are people's lives, and they're at that moment going through a lot. They're, in most cases, they're losing their homes or losing their businesses. So you want to be really respectful of that while trying to find other locations that demonstrate what's going on.
Yeah. All right. Chris, Leo, either of you guys want to talk about, Chris, you kind of referred to it already a little bit. Leo?
So 2 things. In this case, particularly, it's a location that we didn't get, because the second location, I hoped it would have been a rooftop location, and we couldn't find it. And, I went like from rooftop to kind of, terrace to like anywhere outside, so it was that way. But that meant that second location got really, like the second half of the shoot got moved further down and further down, and the main actor couldn't make it, so I had to rewrite a scene to fit. So location in this case, and budget, especially in this case, but kind of like, yeah, so circling back.
The money concerns are coming out.
Yeah.
Limitations you did wind up having. Oh, wait a minute, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, but it all worked out in the end, and we made it work, and it still works, so you shouldn't reveal. But the other thing, that as a writer, I kind of get inspired by location, and sometimes the limitations of a location come in hand. So one other thing that I wrote, which is a feature film, I was like, it needs to be in this very specific contained location. And then that helps you find creative ways. So you kind of like another short film that I wrote, basically the main character is a gym instructor, and his whole personality came out from the fact that I was like, okay, where can we shoot that is not a kitchen? Where is a place where you can actually shoot for cheap, that is not, you know, a kitchen or a road or something like that. That it's very common, but a little bit more specific. So it comes before and also after, you know, both ways. So very, very important. Yes.
Thanks, Leo. Yeah. I want to throw something out here now. I think it might be a little bit contentious, actually. It's necessarily going to pertain to all of you either. Apologies, but I think there are ways to extend it to all of you. We've done films here all now for very little money or no money at all. And most of them have got some kind of element of cast. I don't know, except maybe what Chris, except the exception of you, maybe sort of. That's actually kind of not true, because you do have a family that are your stars, you know, that own the bakery. There could have been money involved. What happens here, guys? What's it like when you know that you have a film that you have to cast and you have to have actors in it, you have to have some kind of featured people in it to tell your story, but you can't pay them? How does that affect what you're doing and how you go about finding those people and making your film?
I think ours was quite lucky in a way.
Yeah.
Ben's family, what are they, your nieces?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay. Right. Are those all the people that are thanked, by the way, in the credits? I made a note of that, and I saw, you know, it looked like you might have had backing from friends and family, or was it just us thanking them because they were in the film and did what they...
yeah, a bit of everything really.
Okay.
Yeah, we had friends and family helping left, right, and centre. It was amazing, really. But yeah, Ben's nieces, absolute superstars.
Yeah. Shout out to Alice and Ebony when you watch this. We love you.
Yeah, thank you.
Look at that.
But yeah, they were great. Like, we met them for the first time and talked. Well, I met them for the first time with Ben. Talked through the script and stuff, and they were on it straight away. Like, they had a little bit of acting experience, or
yeah. So basically, we knew very early on that we weren't going to have enough money to pay actors, you know, and that's probably the thing that always costs the most, at least on the productions that I've done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I should say as well that our budget was £1,000, so it was proper cheap. We didn't have anything else, and that all came from Kickstarter backers. So another thank you to all of them who backed us film. So thank you for that. Okay. But I knew that my nieces were had done some acting before, and or at least they'd done a bit of like panto on stage, you know, and sort of been part of the cast. So that, you know, they had experience with the idea of it, if, you know, even if the focus wasn't necessarily on them. And then, yeah, we met them a couple of times, didn't we, George, together? And we took them bowling, and we just hung out in the park one time and sort of got them to like recreate some of the, you know, scenes from it together, and like got past the sort of giggly, awkward stage of it. I should say, for those that don't know, Alice and Ebony were probably around 6 or 8 at the time that we filmed the thing. So they were, you know, very young, bless them, but they took the whole weekend. We shot over one weekend, and they did it all amazingly.
Cool.
But no, they were really up for it. You know, there was a little bit of sort of shyness to get around, but they were real troopers, and we were, you know, very lucky that they were just happy to come and do it for nothing. And we sort of, you know, made a weekend of it, and they came and stayed with me, etc.
Yeah, it helped create the characters as well. So there's a bit where Alice was just messing around in the dirt, as kids do. And we just filmed it, and that was part of her character. It helped build her profile, because that's what kids do, and it's a nice organic process that we created in a film, which is really nice.
Alex, on the subject of casting your family members, same thing for you.
Well, yeah, I use my daughter in a lot of things that I've done. I actually use her a lot for voiceover. She's got a really good voice. And in this piece, she didn't say a single word. So that was interesting. And a lot of the pieces I do right now are documentary pieces. So it's, you know, people acting naturally. I mean, that's the best type of acting you can get, or people being real. And filming after the flood, it was amazing that when people saw again, this was a mobile phone, so people saw my mobile phone and it rigged up to the movie Free Fly I had. They were more than happy to participate and act for me without me even asking, and it was genuine. It was great. Now, the other film I have out right now, it was interesting because that documentary was done with an actor, and he was a little challenging because he kept asking me what I wanted, and I was like, I just want you to be yourself. So it was actually harder to get the actor to do it. And but the good thing is, what's interesting is there's a fictional piece I would like to do, and in that one, again, I get the benefit of using my daughter and then using this actor, and the way it works is that there's a group of us that all help each other. So if somebody needs me to help, I don't know, hold gear, lighting or whatever, I'll do that. And then, so I'm doing that for free, and then the actor's doing stuff for free for me. So we just find this little group, and that's generally how I get the stuff done. Or I just try to find people that, I don't know, sometimes I just look at a person, I'm like, I have to do something with you. And it's like, I don't care if you can act or not. Everybody can act, because everybody acts at some point in their life, right? Everybody's always telling stories. So it's just getting over that fear of a camera looking at you. And so once you can help them get over that fear and sort of walk them through that, then it's really easy. At least for me so far, it's been really easy.
Easy. Listen to this. Wow.
No, I sort of agree with you, Alex. George, I hope you don't mind me saying, but we ended up not using any of the sound that we shot on the day, because George and I were basically talking to our actors the whole time, you know? But there was something almost, although that in itself was really unnatural in film language, it made the thing more natural, because what they were doing was, what we were asking them to do, and also what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
So there was something that it gave it like a naturalism that wouldn't have been there otherwise, perhaps.
Right. It doesn't look contrived like a lot of things actually do, right? With actors who you're paying money to.
At least I hope it does. I don't know.
Yeah.
Audience will be the judge, but I hope so too.
Not a contrivance in there at all. I don't think at all. Now, hang on now. But Leo, you've had different things to say about actors and money and not money.
Well, I think I kind of went the standard route. So I had like a Star Now ads. Yes, they couldn't be paid. Like nobody got paid. So if I had money, I would pay not just actors, I would pay everybody. That would be my main thing if I had money. But I think for me as a director, what I tried to do with casting was to find people that, were already as close as the character. So they didn't have to act too much, it's like, because they are all, of course, if they don't get paid, they either have trained a little bit, or, it's just their first film. So for example, Fad, the male protagonist, that was his first role. Okay. But when he came on in the casting, it was just him. That was him, that the person that I had in mind was like the way he moved, the way he talked, it was very close to what I already had in mind. So that's why I cast him. And I also think that rehearsal and spending time with your actors, if they have the time, it's really, really important, because of course, they, on one hand, they need to know the words. And on the other hand, it gives them kind of like the time and, to understand the nuances of what the characters have to be, or, who they are, what the story is, what's back in the background. I think the one time that I had sort of like, not professional actors and that I didn't rehearse were when there was a kiss. So I wanted that kiss to be kind of like the first time for them as well. So that time I didn't rehearse, but every other time it's like, you find the best person that you can for the role, and then you rehearse a lot, and then, you try to do your best. And I'm very excited, I'm very happy with everybody, I think. Yeah, they did a great job.
Thank you, Leo. Now, Chris, I'm. This is a little bit, different kind of question for you. The same question here, but did you find that not paying your actors, your family, that you're focusing on, did that kind of give you any limitations? Like how much time they wanted to spend with you, for example, how much they were going to let you hang out with them, the kinds of the kind of access that you had to the bakery. How much that you wanted to talk to them, did any of that come into it, or was it more? No?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I definitely felt like I had to kind of get past the point where I was intruding on their space, so I tried to make it as invisible as possible, apart from in the interviews. Well, it was interesting what Alex was saying, but about, did you say you shot some of yours on a film, on a camera as well, on a phone as well?
Yeah, all of it, yeah.
I felt that really helped, because you've not got this big crew and you're not got a big lighting setup and anything like that, so you could just quickly get to a point where I wasn't going to attempt to kind of Herzog thing and get them to repeat the same thing 8 times in a row to try and grasp some ecstatic truth or anything like that. I just wanted to kind of very naturalist them to just tell me the stories that they'd already told me off camera, because I thought they were really funny and heartwarming, and I wanted to kind of see the dynamic between everybody. So what was the original question? I've gone off on a tangent.
It was the original question was about about not paying actors, finding cast that want to work for free and that kind of thing. So it's loosely, I'm trying to extend it to you.
No, I think it may have changed the dynamic somewhat if I had paid them as well. I kind of went into it. It's interesting what you said about it being a promo piece. I kind of always said to them I wasn't going to do a sort of Louis Theroux style hatchet job, or, I wasn't there to try and dig any dirt to do a muckraking exercise. I was just there to sort of observe the work into the bakery and their interactions, really. So I think they knew that my intentions were pure, so to speak. And I did know them a little bit, so I had a kind of existing relationship there anyway. And they kind of went into it knowing almost what it was going to be like when I finished with it. Yeah.
Very nice. Now, I know that we are getting a little bit short on time here, Ben. Do we have to wrap things up, or do we have any more time for anything else? Mr. Wilkinson, I mean. Ben Wilkinson. And he's still not audible.
I mean, we've got 10 hours.
There we go. I'm back. I guess for me, what's been really interesting is, when I went through the submission process, I picked your films out because they gravitated towards me in some way, and what makes it even more interesting is hearing the stories behind it. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to get out doing these Q&As. I think, yes, we'll draw it to a close, but I think let's focus in on something that I want people to kind of take away. And one of the reasons I started this festival was to show filmmakers who basically had no money what could be achieved with no money. So I think what I'd like to draw out, Rob, and I don't know if you're in agreement, is about what is it, kind of what is the advice that you can give? It's a cliche question, but what is the advice that you can give to people who want to get on in the industry but feel the constraint of having no money?
What can what can we say to people to make them feel that perhaps it doesn't necessarily have to stand in your way? Who wants to start with that one? Chris?
I think it's really just all about the story, isn't it?
Did you say
if you have a good story, that's all you need, really. Everything else just falls into place, and you work with whatever you have. And if it's your phone, if it's if it's an old DSLR, whatever, a camcorder, whatever it is, I mean, it's really about trying to get that story, get that emotion out, than anything else. Everything else is just, I think, kind of secondary to that. I mean, there are movies out there that are very well produced and they're beautiful, and there are also a lot of movies out there that are like that, and they leave you with kind of wanting more, just wanting something because they're beautiful, and that's about it. Mm-hmm. So I think that story is just, for me, is the priority.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'd agree. Sorry, go on, Lou. You were gonna.
No, well,
No,
I kind of maybe kind of would have gone sort of like more practical route. And I would have said, if you want to start out and you want to do something but you don't have any money, I would advise to start helping anybody that is doing a film. On one, first because you learn a lot, and second because when you do your own movie and you cannot pay anybody, then they are sort of maybe are going to be happier to help you. They know you're serious. They, you had the chance to meet the people in your community, who's been good on another shoot, who to ask. So that's maybe a little bit more of a practical advice. But if you spend time helping other people in their own movies, you will learn a lot, and you will make that kind of connection that would then eventually help you in your own movie as well.
Nice. Great answer. Thank you, Leo. All right, boys.
Yeah, I'd say the same. I'd agree completely with Leo and Alex. I think it's like definitely helping others will definitely, help you in the future. And as long as you're good on set and you're nice, you don't necessarily have to be really fantastic, but if you're nice, then, people will be nice back generally. And I think it's true about the story as well. If you have a good story, then it doesn't matter what equipment or location you have, maybe, and you use what you have access to. But I think there's a bit of a bit of access in there as well. I think if you know that you've got something interesting, and you can and you have access to make a documentary about it, then that's a good thing to do, as long as the people who the documentary will be about are happy as well. And equally, if you have a good idea, as long as you've got one good thing, whether it be like a great bit of costume or the potential to shoot at a great location, then all the rest will fall into place. George and I at the moment are trying to make a film with no money at all, like £0 budget, and that's, we're in pre-production. We haven't done it yet, but we're, that it's going to be another short, and we're just sort of testing ourselves. We're seeing what we can do, literally with nothing, just with what we own already, and by putting in favors. So I think it's just, as long as you've got that story, as you said, Alex, and you've got a couple of friends to help you, then you don't really need anything else. Camera.
There's one more thing that you've missed. I think time. Time is one of the most important things, because if you don't spend time on it, you won't enjoy it, because you have to spend time on some things that you like. And if you just rush it, if you do it in a day and then edit it in a week, you won't enjoy it, because you haven't spent time on it. You haven't grown with the film. I feel like time's so important in pre-production, production, and post. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Nice one, George. Yeah, no, good addition to that. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what everybody said. I think the story's a big thing, because that's, if you've got a good story, then that's what people buy into, and why the cast and crew want to get on board with it. And even if you got, £10 to make a film, if you've got a great story, then that's what people will turn up for and support your film and want to be a part of it. And yeah, just you start emailing people. The amount of people who would just say, yeah, I'll meet up for a drink with you and tell you my sort of story, or, give you some of the contacts. People really do. I just thought, it's impenetrable, the film industry. It's like, this idea of ever making a film, it's just it's never going to happen. But you email people and they want to help you out. And yeah, it's kind of never been easier, really. You can do it on your phone. Most people have got a computer, or they can lend one. It's attainable. I remember, must have been about 10, 15 years ago, I used to write for the Sheffield University newspaper, and I got to interview Alan Parker, RIP, and I asked him at the time, what was his advice, for young people who wanted to get involved in filmmaking. He said the same thing then. He says, if you can't find a way to make a film, then, you probably shouldn't be making a film. And that was then. you know, and we've got so much technology at our fingertips now that allows us to make a film. So yeah, just if you've got the will, then just focus it and make a film.
So those are our messages, Ben. It's where there's a will, there's a way. Great story. Be really nice. Doesn't matter if you have money. And by the way, guys, even if you do have money, don't forget about the being nice part. You have to be nice if you have the money too. It doesn't give you a warrant to suddenly be a jerk if you got the cash. So nice one, guys. Thank you so much for being a big part of this. This was a very nice little discussion. I think that went really well, didn't it, Ben? Yeah, good job, guys.
It did. So absolutely, I just want to thank you all for coming on and doing this. And it's like I said, we're, in the end, we're a small festival, and it's you guys who make it. You know, the reason I do this is I had kids and I was a filmmaker, and I basically like, yeah, I can't go on set now. I've got a 2-year-old anymore, so. Without you, I wouldn't be doing this, and I'd probably be going insane just because I'd just be doing my normal day-to-day job. So thank you all. Thank you for anybody who's watching this as well, and thank you for anybody who's bought tickets as well. So thank you very much.